Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Jarrett with SVC Off-Road. So we're going to give you one of our tech tips on how to install our Baja Smurf front bumper. It's the exact same with our regular Baja as well. So this is basically the cut frame bumper, and also we're going to install the intercooler, which I know forever you guys have been asking, how do you install this thing, because we suck at directions. So today we're going to go ahead and get this installed, show you how the adaptive cruise control works and all that fun stuff. We've already removed the front bumper. For those of you that don't know how to remove the bumper, watch the first video of our first tech tip on installing the Baja flush front bumper. That'll show you how to get everything off. So let's get into it. We're going to show you the cut marks, how to do everything. Okay, let's get in. Okay, so here we're about ready to begin. Blake's the one helping me out with the install today. We're going to go ahead and disconnect that wire connection right there. Okay, so what you're going to do to start is you're going to go ahead and start pulling out all the little push pins. I think there's 12 or 13 of them on the top of the guard, I guess you'd call it. So the next step now, you're going to go ahead and remove the top valence. Okay, so next step in the process, you're going to remove the trim piece around the headlights. So you just carefully go ahead and just pop it out. Okay, so you see how those come out? They just pop right out. You're going to go ahead and do the same to the other side. Now that the little headlight bezels are off, we're going to go ahead and remove the front grille. So you have a couple 10s on the top. I think we have 4 of them. You have some 8 mils on the side that you're going to need to use, your 8 mil socket. And then you also have some connections right at the front there that need to get disconnected. Okay, so next up, you're going to go ahead and remove the little clips on the splash guard deal. With the sides removed there, you're going to go ahead, just pull up and out, and that'll go ahead and take the entire assembly off. You're going to go ahead and move that off to the side in a good location. Next step in the process, you're going to go ahead and remove the factory intercooler. So you'll have
a 13 mil on the top,
13 mil on the top,
and 15 mil on the bottom.
15 mil on the bottom. So it should be 4 bolts. So now that the factory support is off for the intercooler, up underneath you want to go ahead and get a flathead screwdriver or something equivalent and go ahead and remove the boots that connect to the intercooler itself. Now that your plumbing is undone, you're going to want to go ahead and twist off the tube that's going to the factory blow-off valve. It kind of like locks in there.
Be a pain sometimes.
It's not always easy. There you go, it'll come undone. And then you have some wire connectors, obviously, for the fans that you'll be disconnecting and getting rid of as well. And you're going to go ahead and just dispose of the factory fan. So now that the intercooler is off the truck, you can see the difference in size from the factory intercooler to the SVC intercooler. So what that's going to do is give you much better cooling for the engine when it comes regard to intake air temps, which means you're going to be better with timing and performance and more horsepower and all that fun stuff, as well as getting it up out of the way and being able to run a much higher and tighter bumper. So that is your size difference right there. And you're going to go ahead and just remove those factory boots. They may come off when you pull the intercooler on. So as you can see, Blake just went ahead and just plugged up the plumbing and the charge pipes with some rags, just so, because now you're going to be cutting the frame, so you don't want to get anything inside. You're going to go ahead and do the fun part. You're going to go ahead and cut your frame. It's not scary, don't worry about it. It's a very simple process. You're going to go ahead and measure roughly 10.5 inches from the front there to your bottom cut line. It's right at that body mount, essentially. So you can see right there is your mark, and then you're going to go up top.
Just in front of this.
Just in front
here.
Of
about right there.
That little clip. Right like that. And you're just going to draw a straight line and connect them. And keep in mind, it does not need to be a perfect cut. You're just getting rid of the section that you don't need anymore. So
don't. You also need to cut this right along this line, right below this bracket.
So as you see what Blake just said, right below that bracket there, you're going to cut right there and down. So that little corner needs to go away as well. So now that both sides are marked, you're going to want to go ahead and begin your cut. And for those of you that do this for the first time, if you just use a Sawzall with a good metal cutting blade, it's really simple. And then hang on to your old frame horns just in case you ever needed to go back to stock. You could always put them back up and weld them up. Then the next step you're going to want to do is, if you have the tools, just go ahead, take a bit of a grinder on it and just clean up so it's not sharp and you don't cut yourself. And then you also need to go ahead and cut the ends off near the body mount. So the next step is you're going to go ahead and open up that hole in the frame to 3/4 of an inch. You could either grind it with a die grinder, or you can go ahead and get a 3/4 inch drill. Okay, so you'll notice we went ahead and inserted the sleeve, the crush sleeve, and there's two ways of doing it. You could either tape it in place like that, which no one will ever see, so don't worry about it if you do. Or you can go ahead and just tack weld it in there. Obviously we'll tack weld it because we have access to welder, but for those of you who don't, this is an easy little trick to get that in. Then that way the bolt comes in and out, and when you push the bumper over, that's going to stay in place and not move on you and make your life a lot easier getting the bolt back in. All right, so next step, Blake's going to go ahead and narrow up this frame a little bit to get it over. So you're going to take a big mallet and you're going to hit it on the thicker side up here and just kind of crush it down a little bit. And again, you're only doing that just to narrow it up, so don't worry about how it looks.
Damn.
Wow, impressive. How much of a baseball player? Next step in the process, you're going to take the factory hardware that came off the two that hold the factory kind of mounting plate on, and you're going to go ahead and mount it right in those existing locations on top of the frame. You want to make sure the brake bend is pointed up and out. You're going to go ahead and remove the factory blow-off valve from the stock intercooler. So it's an 8mm socket. And to remove the blow-off valve, just turn it counterclockwise and just kind of give it a tug up, and that'll clock itself on the SVC intercooler. So with the factory blow-off valve now removed from the factory intercooler, go ahead and take the rubber bushings at the bottom, because you're going to reuse those, and you're going to locate them over onto the SVC lower mount. Next step in the process, just go ahead and snug down the mount for the lower portion of the intercooler. So now that the mount is snug down, you're going to want to go ahead, take your rubber bushings and put them face down into the mount. Next step in the process, you're going to want to go ahead and remove the mount for the hood latch.
2 10 mils.
So 2 10 mils. So now you want to go ahead and reinstall the factory blow-off valve into the SVC intercooler. You're going to put it in and clock it until it stops, and then you'll insert the, what size bolt are we using there?
It's a 1/4 inch, 1/4 20 with 3/16 Allen head.
So next up, takes a little bit of finagling. You just got to go ahead and get it mounted in the lower holes, and then just get everything aligned up with your top bracket.
Top bracket goes behind.
Yeah, behind the latch, and then the dowels go over that.
It may help sometimes to pop this off.
Which part?
This connector down here. Just to pop it out of the
All right, so Blake's saying it helps if you pop off that little connector just to make your life easier. All right, so the best trick to getting this lined up back to where it's supposed to go is just utilize the serrated marks from where it was installed initially and try to match that up as best as possible. Now's a good time to test the hood to make sure it comes down and latches and all the corners line up and everything looks good. And if you need to adjust it, you could adjust it up. So the next step in the process, you're going to go ahead with the intercooler all mounted up. We're going to start doing the charge pipe plumbing. All right, so you're going to get all your hoses set up, and one of the things we like to use is a little bit of hairspray just to let it slide on, some Aquanet, if that's even still a thing, and that'll help you get everything slid on nice, and then when it dries, it gets nice and tacky. First up is going to be the Y pipe. I don't need to tell anyone, but make sure you take your rags out. Well, I have seen that one time before. So you're going to go ahead and put your, what size hoses are those again on that one?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
The smaller ones, all right?
Yeah, they're the 2 smallest.
The 2 smallest hoses are going to go on the ends of the factory Y pipe.
Go ahead and tighten them up.
Yep. So now that everything's in place, you have good coverage over everything, go ahead and tighten up your boost clamps and make them pretty snug. You don't need to crank them insanely tight, but definitely get them good and torqued down. So the next step before you do the driver's side charge pipe is you want to go ahead and get rid of the factory recirculation tube that goes up into the intake. Can you wiggle it around for me, Blake? So you'll see it moving around. It comes off just like the blow-off valve did. You just got to kind of turn it, clock it, and rip it out of there. So the next step in the process, Blake's going to go ahead and put the little black cap. You're going to want to just place that where the recirc valve was, or tube, and we give you some zip ties with that as well, and just go ahead, put it on there, zip tie it, and that will seal it off. You can see the factory plumbing right there. We're going to go ahead and put the hose on it.
The bigger of the two.
Yeah, the larger of the two remaining hoses. And get your hose clamps all set up. And this tube can only go one way. The tighter elbow bend is towards the back of the truck.
It also has a larger flange.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to. There we go. And then you guys will notice one of the reasons that we move the blow-off valve up top is so this gets it out of the way, because it's no secret. A lot of the SVC customers really use their trucks in the dirt and beat them up. So unlike some of the competitions, blow-off valves are located down on the actual plumbing below the bumper line. Ours is up behind the grill out of the way, so you don't have to worry about rocks hitting it if you're following too close to a buddy, or nose diving, whatnot, so it's out of the way and protected. So now with that done, you might have the fan clip down here. Well, you will have the fan fitting, the wire. Just go ahead and zip tie it to one of the lines out of the way, so you don't have to worry about that. You're not using it again. Okay, so now you're moving on to the grill. So you're going to want to get rid of all the factory slats. Go ahead and you bend them up and pull them out of the way and set them off to the side. You're not using them again. If you want to hang on to them, go ahead. So now with all the slats gone, you're going to go ahead and remove the factory motor. Don't worry if you break stuff, you're not using it again, just get it. So now you kind of take the grill, you're going to put it up, and this will kind of show you where you need to trim a little bit and when you need to start massaging it. And really it's not an exact science. You just go ahead and start trimming away where it's hitting the intercooler and keep going until Blake's going to go ahead and take the body saw and start trimming away at all the parts that are hitting the intercooler. Yeah, and be sure not to cut any of the wires that are inside the grill. And then before you remove that center bracket, you're going to want to go ahead and remove the 8mm to the support center. So now that piece is gone, and you're going to chop off.
Bottom lip.
So now we're going to take off that bottom lip. Want to point to that for me, Blake?
This whole thing right here, just following the radius.
Following the radius of the intercooler, it's the bottom section. That's the top of the intercooler, right? The top section, you're going to take off this little lip right here that Blake's taking. So next up on the driver's side, to clear the blow-off valve, you're going to have to notch around on this section right here. All right, so for those of you guys with adaptive cruise control, my truck doesn't have it, but we're gonna do a makeup as if it does, kind of a pretend one. You wanna go ahead and remove where Blake's pointing to that whole kind of cube looking mount there. So get rid of that whole thing so your adaptive cruise. Okay, so this is a little unrelated to the installation that we're doing because we're working with the intercooler obviously, but for those of you guys who buy our Baja flush bumpers that have the adaptive cruise control and relocate it, you basically take the bracket that we send you and you're gonna mount it with the grills off right now, so I figure it's easiest to show you. Right where Blake has, it's in the upper left driver's side corner. So it's basically, if you were looking at this upside down, you would mount it just like that. You drill some holes, bolt it in, and you basically just want to make sure that thing is as straight as you can make it to the center of the truck. So make it looking directly straight. And Blake, if you can hold up the intercooler, the grill. Yeah. So you can kind of see, looking at it, if this makes more sense. There's the front of the grill, and it's going to mount right your top finger right there. So you just drill some holes to line those up somewhere around there and there, right? And then you go ahead and mount it up. So that's all you do if you don't have the intercooler but you have an adaptive cruise. Okay, so because our truck does not have the adaptive cruise control, we're just going to kind of show you what you would do. For 2017 and 18s, your factory cruise control device will mount right into those holes right there. We do provide an adapter for the 19 and 20 trucks as well, and as well as the newer Gen 3s. So it just basically mounts right on top, just like that. You can see it. It's real simple. And then you just bolt it up and plug it in. So it's easy as that. Okay, so the next step that you're going to do is go ahead and connect the factory blow-off valve wire harness. And then you'll want to take some zip ties and just zip tie it up back behind it. So make sure you have some slack, because obviously you guys that are off-roading, you use your trucks and the bodies move and all that fun stuff. So get that connected in and just go ahead and zip tie it up where you feel comfortable. Okay, so now Blake's gonna go ahead and get the grill on. You've plugged in your blow-off valve harness for the wiring harness, and we're gonna get that placed back up. Everything clears. Just give it a good look over inside, make sure nothing's touching, because you know the body mounts are rubber on these trucks, so stuff will move around, so make sure you got some good clearance in there and all that. But outside of that, you can see how it sits right in front. Definitely kind of adds to the front of the truck. And then with doing the grill, the reverse procedure to put it back on, you're going to go ahead and just put all your bolts in that you removed. Hopefully you didn't lose any of those. Push the push pins in, and then we will get next on to show you how to get the bumper. All right, so with the help of a buddy, if you can, bumpers on, just kind of sitting there loosely. Go ahead and get the bottom section to the lower subframe, and go ahead and just get that kind of snugged up. And one thing you'll notice, some of you have bumpers that are the old design, where you used to have to take the steering rack bolts out. We changed that. So that no longer is the case. Now you just go to underneath, so you don't have to worry about removing any of the steering rack bolts or anything. So fortunately, Gen 1 guys, you still have to remove the steering rack bolts, but we will be actually making a revision. So down the road, you won't have to do it anymore. So one thing you'll notice as Blake is tightening this up, we had another bumper on this truck already, which the lower skid plate, if you watch the install video, if you really need to know how to do it, the lower factory skid there underneath, basically, you need to trim it right about to where it is right there. That way the skid plate,
cut off about
three quarters of an inch, yeah. But on the video for the Baja Flush that we did, we show you where to cut. So if you want to reference that video, you can do that as well. Okay, so Blake has the lower skid plate bolts just kind of in there a little bit, not fully snug, because you have the two plastic, can you hold those up please? The two little plastic washers that we give you, those are going to go on the inside of the frame to take up the slack, so that way you can go ahead and you know, torque it down good and tight so you won't crush the bumper. It's a bit of a pain in the ass to get them in, but with enough patience you can get them in. All right, so apply a little, we are now at the process, you're gonna go ahead and apply a little bit of Loctite on the 3/4 inch bolts, the frame bolts.
And a little bit goes a long way.
Yeah, a little bit goes a long way. Some people go crazy with it. And then basically once that's done, we're gonna put a jack up under the center of the bumper and get it up as high as tight as possible, get your fitment good. And once you have your fitment where you want it, you're gonna go ahead and just crank down those 2 bolts. A lot of you are asking about torque. Just take an impact and slam them down. There's no specific torque on them. You'll be fine as long as you do them good. Okay, so as you can see now, we have the bumper on the truck. Everything's nice and flush and looking good and tight like it's supposed to. We're gonna go ahead and put the skid plate on now. Essentially, there's little nutserts, kind of little clips, right? Let me get where they are. There, this thing. Those little guys, you're gonna go ahead and put those on the 4 tabs on the skid plate. You'll line the skid plate up and just hammer it down, and that should complete your bumper install once you plug in the end caps on those. And then this one's a little bit different because it's my personal truck, so I actually added a front valence. So we will show you the end result here with a nice photograph of it. Thanks for watching, guys.